They wanted to take care of, yeah, but Sean, they wanted to, I don't care.
They're yelling at me.
This is more important.
As Donald Trump has gotten older and more cognitively impaired, we've frequently seen his allies in right-wing media desperately trying to save him from himself when they interview him. Well, Trump was interviewed yesterday by Fox News' Sean Hannity, and a situation occurred where Trump was ranting and raving about political retribution, and Hannity desperately tried to change the topic to the economy, and Donald Trump said, "I don't care." But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we've got several clips to talk about in this video, from this first Oval Office interview that Donald Trump has given to his top ally at Fox News, Sean Hannity. And again, the callousness and the disregard and the deceit and the priorities of Donald Trump were on full display in just this clip.
A bunch of losers. Joe Biden has very bad advisors. Somebody advised Joe Biden to give pardons to everybody but him. They wanted to take care of, yeah, but Sean, they wanted to, I don't care.
They're yelling at me.
This is more important because right now the economy is going to do great.
I want to know about
I'm here, so the economy, but you have to understand, he had bad advisors on almost everything. It's like in the old days when the Secretary of State said he never made a correct decision on foreign policy. Joe Biden got very bad advice.
You've been through
a bunch of losers.
So, there you have it. He's talking about political retribution, Joe Biden's advice, ranting about Joe Biden, the advice Biden got with respect to pardons. And Sean Hannity's smart enough to recognize the majority of Americans actually don't want to hear about this shit. Maybe your MAGA base does. Maybe your MAGA base is content to sacrifice their wallets, their pocketbooks on the altar of your revenge. But the majority of Americans don't. So once again, as Sean Hannity has been wont to do, he tried to throw Donald Trump a ladder, a lifeline. And Donald Trump repeatedly rejected it, saying, "I don't care. You want to talk about the economy? I don't care. This is more important." Direct quotes. Again, revealing where his priorities are. When he told you his priority was the economy, he's full of shit. And actually, as a matter of fact, there are two posts I want to draw your attention to, both from me. So, days into office, Trump has already broken another major promise. He vowed to cut grocery prices quickly, but the cost of eggs has skyrocketed on his watch. What a disastrous presidency. So far, and Fox Business is reporting this. Shelling out, egg prices rise nearly 37%. Eggs cost as much as $9 per dozen in some states. So, on Donald Trump's watch, the cost of eggs, which I think is a specific grocery that he repeatedly mentioned on the campaign trail, that he was going to cut those prices, well, they're skyrocketing now that he's president. And his focus is on pardoning January 6th violent offenders and violent cop beaters and ranting about Joe Biden. This is where his priorities are. And by the way, you and I and Democrats, both in the media and elected Democrats, have to make it a priority to point that out to the American people, because the facts simply don't speak for themselves. Donald Trump's focus is clearly on political retribution and aggrandizing and enriching himself, and not cutting prices for the American people. It also betrays, as I mentioned in another post, but I don't have it up in front of me, that this is actually a tacit concession by Trump. If he's not concerned about the economy, if this is more important than the economy, then what it suggests is that the economy he inherited from President Biden is good enough for him, which defies everything he said on the campaign trail. He led us to believe that the Biden economy was the worst in recorded history. Well, obviously not if you think it's going so well right now. Interesting where his priorities are. We've got some other clips as well to play from this interview with Sean Hannity.
Now, I will say that Los Angeles has changed everything, because a lot of money is going to be necessary for Los Angeles, and a lot of people on the other side want that to happen, and
North Carolina too.
Fast. Well, they don't care about North Carolina. The Democrats don't care about North Carolina. What they've done with FEMA is so bad. FEMA is a whole nother discussion, because all it does is complicate everything. FEMA has not done their job for the last 4 years. You know, I had FEMA working really well. We had hurricanes in Florida. We had Alabama tornadoes. But unless you have certain types of leadership, it gets in the way. And FEMA is going to be a whole big discussion very shortly, because I'd rather see the states take care of their own problems. If they have a tornado someplace, and if they let that state, Oklahoma is very competent. I love Oklahoma.
So Oklahoma is frequently ravaged by tornadoes, as is much of the Midwest. Louisiana, a red state, Speaker Mike Johnson's state, a state that Mike Johnson represents, it received $120 billion in federal assistance for disaster and crisis management over the past 10 years. Louisiana relies on federal subsidies. Most states do. Most states need the help from the federal government, but red states, which tend to be poorer and less economically active, rely on it a hell of a lot more. California has its issues, but California pays into the federal government more than it receives. It subsidizes red states, poorer, less educated, less healthy, less economically active red states. So I'm not sure it's a good idea for Donald Trump to suggest just let every state fend for themselves. Not only is that unpatriotic, un-American, but it would also really screw over a lot of red states. California has the 5th biggest economy in the world. Its economy dwarfs the red states in this country. Again, not that it doesn't need federal assistance because it pays federal taxes, but red states and blue states are entitled to federal assistance. And he's lying his ass off when he said that FEMA has been horribly mismanaged under the Biden administration. When red states were afflicted by natural disasters, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, FEMA was there. President Biden was there. He made phone calls. He authorized emergency authorizations. Assistance was surged to red states, Florida multiple times under the Biden administration, despite political disagreements. We actually, you may recall, during the campaign before the election, we discussed this. Red states publicly praised President Biden and the Biden administration for their attentiveness, for their activity, for their commitment to helping red states out, despite the political disagreements. And Donald Trump famously tried and threatened to withhold federal assistance at various points from blue states unless he got political concessions. The moral superiority of the Biden administration over the Trump administration is unquestionable. And again, his proposal, well, we'll get rid of FEMA and let the states fend for themselves, that would be disastrous for states populated mostly by Trump voters.
He pardoned everybody, but he didn't pardon himself. And remember this, those people that he pardoned are now mandated, because they got a pardon, to testify, and they can't take the fifth.
Should Congress investigate that?
I think we'll let Congress decide.
Would you want the Attorney General to investigate it?
You know, I was always against that with presidents and Hillary Clinton. I could have had Hillary Clinton a big number done on her.
Have you changed your mind?
And I didn't want to, well.
So again, he's full of shit, right? We've played the clips. We've talked about this in previous videos. When Donald Trump was the sitting president in 2020, weeks before the election, days before the election, he publicly, on Fox News, multiple times, Maria Bartiromo's show in particular, he did it more than once, demanded that there be investigations by his DOJ, not only into former Vice President, then candidate Joe Biden, a political rival, but also former President Barack Obama. So Donald Trump's position on investigating his political opponents, be they political candidates or former presidents, was actually pretty unambiguous. As far as he was concerned, if they opposed him, they're all fair game. Former president, former vice president, political candidate, political opponent, it doesn't matter. Only when the situation was flipped, and he was under investigation, was his position on presidential investigations and presidential immunities did that change. He is an unprincipled, hypocritical loser who is desperate to rewrite reality. And of course, Sean Hannity won't correct the record, but we will. Donald Trump has never been a consistent, principled supporter of presidential immunity until he desperately needed it, because he's a coward and a loser. So, but again, this clip reveals his priority, where even now, his priority is political retribution. We'll play some more of this clip.
I went through 4 years of hell by this scum that we had to deal with. I went through 4 years of hell. I spent millions of dollars in legal fees, and I won, but I did it the hard way. It's really hard to say that they shouldn't have to go through it also. It is very hard to say that. Joe Biden, remember this.
So again, even now, what's his priority? Political retribution, playing tit for tat. Now, I would argue that he was under investigation legitimately, and the DOJ bent over backwards to avoid prosecuting him. We have reports that Merrick Garland dragged his feet with investigating Trump with respect to January 6th, and the FBI were desperate with respect to the National Defense Information, the so-called classified documents case, to just get the documents back. Just give us the damn documents back so we don't have to prosecute you. Donald Trump brought those prosecutions onto himself. And then, of course, with his attempts to steal the 2020 election, that's all on him. But now he's saying, listen, because I was investigating, by the way, he didn't win all those cases. The classified documents case was dismissed by a Trump-appointed judge, but he didn't win the case. And number two, the January 6th case at the federal level, Jack Smith, the special counsel, withdrew the case because Donald Trump won the election, and the Office of Legal Counsel has had a position for 50 years that you can't indict a sitting president. So again, once again, revisionist history and lies. Here's another clip.
Horribly a long time. It would be very, very cumbersome to go and look. You know how many people we're talking about? 1,500 people. Almost all of them should not have been, this should not have happened. And the other thing is this, some of those people with the police, true, but they were very minor incidents, okay? You know, they get built up by a couple of fake guys that are on CNN all the time.
Nobody watches.
They were very minor incidents, and it was time. You have murderers in Philadelphia. You have murderers.
This is Trump defending his disgusting, wildly unpopular January 6th pardon, saying that, oh, there were minor incidents, the cops who were beaten, tased, who were so traumatized that, you know, they killed themselves out. It's just minor incidents. Again, clearly not a man who has a principled position of being pro-law enforcement. His support of law enforcement extends only in as much as law enforcement is supporting him. If law enforcement is preventing his cultists from overthrowing the government and installing him as a dictator, then he opposes law enforcement. One final clip.
You did run on a platform. You were very straightforward. You said you would pardon these people that were sentenced for January 6th.
Yeah, totally.
You did. The only criticism or pushback I've seen is about people that were convicted or were involved in incidents where they were violent with police. Why did they get a pardon?
A number of reasons. Number one, they were in there for 3.5 years, a long time.
Right.
And in many solitary confinement, treated like nobody's ever been treated so badly.
And again, no evidence of that at all. None. He just says that. What it comes down to is Donald Trump loves cop beaters as long as those cop beaters are Trump supporters and Trump voters. That's it. That's it. It's a totally transactional, qualified dynamic. But there you have it, folks. Donald Trump giving his first official Oval Office unhinged interview, which was so unhinged that even Sean Hannity begged him to shut the hell up about his political revenge and his petty political grievances and focus on the economy. And what did Trump say? He doesn't care. He said, I don't care. And he said, this is more important, meaning political retribution. Totally pathetic, even now as grocery prices skyrocket on his watch. Terrible. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.